Again, if you're not familiar with the Republican Assembly, Ronald Reagan said that the best symbol of a grassroots worker I can think of is the Republican Assembly. The Republican Assemblies are the conscience of the Republican Party. There's lots of different groups that partner with the Republican organizations. One of the things that the Republican Assembly specializes in is making sure that our Republicans are actually true to their principles, to the platform that we espouse. We do believe the Democrats are taking us in a direction that is toward the destruction of our country. And it's not, if the Democrats are going off the cliff at 120 miles per hour, we're not looking for Republicans who are just going to take us off the cliff at 60 miles per hour. We're looking for Republicans who are looking to reverse course. And we're trying to bring us back to the principles of our founding fathers, which were, the nation, what was stated in the Declaration of Independence. These truths we hold to be self-evident. All are created equal. They are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And we have to live by the laws of nature and of nature's God. And so these are the principles that you will see on our website. If you've been to our website at Georgia Republican or GeorgiaRA.com, you can look at our 10 principles. You'll see there's things like the pro-life. We do believe in the sanctity of life. We believe that in victims' rights. We believe that private property is sacred, and we have to defend private property, we have to protect and restore the family. Many other principles that I hope you'll familiarize yourself with if you're not already familiar. I also want to thank our officers who have contributed to put this event together. If you are one of our officers, if you could please stand up. I just want to especially recognize President Debbie Fisher of the Cobb Republican Assembly, our first Vice President Matthew Hardwick, our second Vice President Jerry Ramsey, our third Vice President Charlie Williams, and our Treasurer Mr. Kerry Key, who I think you saw as he came in. Appreciate all their work to help put this event together. All right. We've done our call to order. We've done our invocation. We've done the national anthem. And now, are you ready for the main event? Ready. All right. Well, we're very much looking forward to hearing from our candidates. I know there's been several meet and greets and opportunities for you to shake their hand and get to know them one-on-one, but tonight we're going to be picking their brains and get down to some of the issues. So I'd like to invite each of our candidates, our chair candidates, to make their way up to the table at this point. And I think they've all kind of staked their claim on different spots here at the table. Okay, so we're going to kick off with a 3-minute opening statement. I have my beautiful bride sitting on the front row with a timer, ladies, and she's going to let you know if you reach the end of your time, and we got a little red flag to hold up if you start to go over time too long. We're going to start off in order, alphabetical order, last name, start with Lisa, then Pam, then Salleigh, to give your 3-minute opening statement, please. Lisa? Are we good?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah. The mic
okay.
Toward you.
Oh, we had a lapel mic, so.
Well, the lapel mic is for recording the...
Okay. Okay, there we go. Can you guys hear me now? All right. Well, good evening, everyone. As you know, my name is Dr. Lisa Adkins, and I am running to be your next Cobb County chairman. A lot of people have asked me recently of why I've decided to run for this position. And quite honestly, the reason I'm running for this position is sitting right over there, and that's my 7-year-old little girl. Our nation, our state, our county is under attack. And we need to preserve our county, our state, our nation for our future generations. My grandfather taught me 3 lessons when I was growing up. He taught me to love my family, love my country, and to always fight for what's right. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm fighting to help stem the tide that has come to Cobb County by strategically using our volunteers' time, which is our most precious resource, to target specific House districts, to target specific precincts, so that we are utilizing their time to make the most impactful difference in our county that's possible. And by doing that, it translates to making that same difference in our state and in our nation. Now, we're going to have to get into South Cobb. There's no questions there. But in order to make immediate and short-term gains that we'll need to make for the 2022 elections, that's not our top priority, because there are certain precincts down in South Cobb that right now vote 90% Democrat. We're not going to make a huge difference in there immediately. It's going to take time because there is no silver bullet. But there are precincts in currently House District 37 and 43 and 40 and 35 that we can secure our current representatives and flip those weaker Democrat districts. So thank you all for coming, and I look forward to answering your questions tonight.
Pam Alayon.
Hi, my name is Pamela, and I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank the GRA for holding this, and I want to thank my opponents for stepping up. This ain't easy, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm not a polished politician. I speak from the heart. What I do is from the heart. I've been here since 2017, and everything from walking in through that front door, when you see that welcome sign with the elephant, that was me. When you walk in and you look to your left and you see the Ronald Reagan blanket, that is me. When you see this over here, that was me and Linda Lucas. Where are you, Linda? She's out here. She helped me put that up, along with my husband and my son. This stage right here, that we welcome all our wonderful guests that they stand on, when we have our congressmen and our senators here, I went ahead and had that built because I was thinking about the GOP and how we can make things better so that you can see everybody. We need an organizer, we need a mobilizer, we need a unifier, and that's who I am. That's how we're going to beat the Democrats. You need an entrepreneur. You need a different mindset. What we've been doing has not been working. And we need to go to apartments and townhouses because conservative people live there too. And it's okay to go there. And I'll be right there with them. It's grassroots, folks. When I was here during the election cycle, and I organized 30 volunteers to worked over 4,000 hours, brought in $11,000. That was due to my dedication and to the dedication of the volunteers. You don't get an endorsement from Claire Harrison. This woman is a hard worker, you know who she is. If she doesn't have the confidence in you that you can get the work done. We need energy, we need courage, we need a backbone, and starting right here in this place, we need transparency and truth. And I'm that person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. Now our third candidate, Salleigh Grubbs.
Hello, Cobb County. In the state of Georgia and whoever else is watching, my name is Salleigh Grubbs, and I am a proud, unapologetic patriot. This is a great event. I want to thank you all for doing it. But this room and what happened at the precinct caucus, they are a symptom of what is going on in our country. We have people who are fed up, they are tired, and they want change, and they want to be sure that our country is protected. As Thomas Jefferson said, eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. People have sat by and they've assumed that it was being done. They've assumed that things were being taken care of, and guess what? They were wrong. And so that's why I decided to run, is because like everyone, we have family, we have friends that we want to see free, and we're seeing our liberty stripped every single day. Every single day, there is a new message being put out that is taking our liberty away from us. and we have to work hard to prevent from that being stolen from us. What I bring to the table is business expertise. I have turned around businesses for years. What you do is you see a business that might be floundering or in trouble, and I personally experienced this at the beginning of the recession in 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. I think we can all identify with how scared we were. And I think people are very scared now. And we are in a ship that is headed for a rocky shore. And if we don't get it turned around, it means disaster. Only this isn't just an economic disaster, this is our freedom and liberty disaster. My plan is to treat the GOP like a business. We need policies and procedures put in place. I'm not looking at the next 2 years as your chairman. I'm looking at 10, 20 years down the road to put people in place so we don't have the ups and downs. If you look at the Democratic Party, they're prepared and they've been doing this for years, much like the Chinese. When they come up with their plans, it's over 200 years. What do we think in America? We are so fortunate to have our founding documents to last this long. And it's only with liberty and freedom that we're going to get it to last again. So I ask for your confidence and your vote for the next chairman of the Cobb GOP. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Salleigh Grubbs. All right, so moving forward, our answers are going to be reduced to 2 minutes. And we're going to change the order. So this time we're going to go to Pam, then Salleigh, then Lisa. The next question is, why do you want to be chair of the Cobb County Republican Party, and what are your qualifications? Pam?
Thank you for that question. Okay. Why do I want to be chair of the Cobb County Party? I don't want to see Georgia become New York. I'm concerned about my family. Quite frankly, I'm concerned about everybody's family. That's just the type of person that I am. I take on other people's burdens. Adversity is where I thrive. This is my ball game right here. I know I can handle this, and I will handle this. And I've already been doing things to handle this. I'm not waiting to become chairman. I've already put together a full team. Each team member has their own assistant, especially my grassroots person, Fung Fung. He has 2 assistants because it all goes back to grassroots. I didn't like where this country was going, so I just looked up, Googled it, where's the closest Republican Party? And here it was. I walked in, jumped in head first, and I've been here since. And it takes a lot of time and dedication. And I have that time. This is my full-time job. I'm an entrepreneur and I have passive income. So I have the time to do this. And that's important. And I've seen what it takes to run this office. And let me tell you something, guys. It's not an easy job. I know what I'm in for. My team knows what they're in for because they've also been a part of the GOP. They didn't just walk up in 2020. They've been here. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Sounds good, and within the time. Awesome. All right, down to Salleigh. I'll repeat the question. Why do you want to be chair of the Cobb County Republican Party, and what are your qualifications? Salleigh Grubbs.
So I don't know that I woke up one morning and said I want to be the chair of the Cobb Republican Party. What I want to do is I want to save Cobb County from being blue. I want to save Cobb County and our state from communism. That sounds like an extreme statement, but I think we can all see it is not extreme any longer. What are my qualifications? My qualifications are running multi-million-dollar businesses that were in trouble and turning them around, making them profitable. I did it through the recession. I grew one business by over 400% by putting policies and procedures in place, hiring the right people for the jobs. I was able to not only turn things around and save it, but to also make it one of the most profitable businesses in that sector in the Southeast. Also, as far as qualifications with my slate, I did not have them together for a long period of time because I took my time to choose the right candidates who are highly qualified and highly trained. I think when you see Kevin Nicholas here, he is highly qualified, has been in politics, and he understands what it takes to run a good organization as well, being in business. And I have the best and the brightest. And I also have young people. Young people are our future, and they've got to know how to run things. And so that's why I think I'm qualified.
Thank you, Salleigh. Now to Lisa Adkins. Question again is, why do you want to be chair, and what are your qualifications?
Part of the reason I wanted to be chair is to be able to make a difference in our county. And I think that speaks for all three of us here, is that we see the need, and so I'm taking the lead. Because we have to have someone who has a realistic vision of what can be accomplished and what can set us up for the future to continue that success. I have an amazing team behind me that has a multitude of experiences, everything from training in the grassroots to being involved on various committees, various positions, but most of all is we gel together as a solid, united front. Now, what makes me qualified? I've been in Cobb County. I moved here just over 5 years ago. Walked in this door at my first, well, actually the door across the street at my first precinct meeting 3 months later. I hit the ground running and I haven't stopped. Now, I may not always be in front of the cameras taking pictures, and you may not always see what I do because it's being done behind the scenes. Things like modernizing credentials so that after the last person is registered, your credentials report is ready in 20 minutes instead of what used to take an hour to an hour and a half. That's what I'm bringing to Cobb County, is innovation, modernization, so that we can keep moving our county forward.
Thank you. Dr. Adkins. Yeah. All right, so the next question, Abby, is going to be 1 minute to answer. It kind of hits on things you've already talked a little bit about, but question number 2, and we'll have Salleigh start off this one. Question number 2, have you held any offices within the GOP organizations before or any other organizations, and how will those experiences help you in this role?
No, I have not held any offices in the GOP, but what I have done is held offices in major national organizations, the National Association of Manufacturers, the Chemical Coaters Association International. I'm the current state treasurer, past state president. So yes, I've also in Marietta, being in the city, I've been on the student governance team at Marietta Middle School. So I've held many positions in many organizations.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, Dr. Adkins.
The simple answer is yes. I've been involved holding offices in various organizations since 2017. From 2017 to 2019, I was first vice chair of the Cobb Young Republicans. At the same time, in 2017 to 2019, I was my precinct chair and I was vice chair of fundraising for the 11th Congressional District and my House District Secretary. 2019 to 2021, I was first vice chair for the 11th Congressional District, my House District Chair, and my precinct vice chair. And in 2020, I was also the 5-star chair for the Cobb GOP. In addition, there are other organizations I've been a part of where I've led, including honor societies, civic organizations that I'll love to tell you about at a different time.
Thank you. Awesome. So this one here, Pam, go right ahead. Question 2, have you held any offices, and how will those experiences help you?
Have I held any offices just within this organization? Yes, I am vice chair of membership, and I also am on the diversity board for the NFRW, and I have held many different positions since 2017, chairing different committees, and yeah, so that's it.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, Pam. All right, so the next question here, we can applaud them for that. I can relate to this next question because, you know, I think many of us feel that all of y'all have qualities that we appreciate, and we appreciate your slates in different ways. And so this person here says, question number 3, I am an undecided delegate at the Cobb County GOP convention. There are things I like about all 3 of you and your slates, and I was disappointed that you 3 ran against each other. If you do not win this position, in what ways do you envision yourself working with whoever is elected as chair? We'll start off with Lisa.
If I don't win this position, I see myself doing many of the same things I'm currently doing. That's working behind the scenes, working with technology to make processes better, to make them more efficient, because that makes a better experience for all of us. Nobody likes sitting an hour waiting for credentials. Just is what it is. So if we can make things quicker, better, use data for where we're targeting in our precincts, that's where I thrive. I can remember on election day, Jason's like, hey Lisa, can I get you to look at this data for me? Sure. Because that's what I do for a living. I'm a data analyst for the HR department at Kimberly-Clark. So data is what I do for a living, and I know I'm weird, but data is also fun. But it makes a huge difference as we go and to focus our efforts, because we don't want to do a shotgun. We want to be strategic. We want to be a sniper and know exactly where to hit.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. Again, the question is, if you do not win this position, in what ways do you envision yourself working with whoever is elected as chair?
Who goes?
Pam.
I go.
Yep.
That's me. So if I'm not elected chair, where do I would continue to do what I'm doing, which is grow the party. You know, if you don't expand your family, the family name dies, okay? If we don't get out there and recruit people for grassroots, the Republican Party will no longer be, okay? We have to continue to grow and encourage people from all backgrounds to be involved in the party and grow the party. And was that?
That's good.
What was the question? What was that?
Yeah, in what ways do you envision yourself working with whoever does win?
Oh, yeah, well, I would continue to do that for them. That's what I'm good at. I'm an organizer. I'm a mobilizer, a unifier. I do all those things. I'm a people's person. And again, I mean, you can have all the information in the world. If you don't have people to get out there and do the work and get poll workers and poll watchers and poll managers, which I have 2 poll managers on my team, thank you very much, ladies, then it doesn't get done. You're not going to have election integrity if you don't have the people to keep the legislators hold their feet to the fire. You need all of that. You need people. It's grassroots, and that's what I would continue to do, is grassroots.
Thank you. All right, Salleigh. The question again is, if you do not win this position, in what ways do you envision yourself working with whoever is elected as chair?
If I were not to win the position of chair, first of all, I'd like to say I want to work with anybody and everybody who will turn the ship around and help get it to shore. That's the number one thing. We all need to work together, no matter our beliefs, our backgrounds, or whatever. If we're a Republican and we believe in Republican principles, we're working together. I don't care what happens. But one of the main things that is a passion for me is the election protection task force that I have devised. And with my team, we want to be sure that we can protect the ballot, because we can spend all this money on campaigns. We can do everything. We can put up signs, and we can organize poll watchers, and we can spend all this money on elections. But if we can't protect the ballot, we don't have anything. So that is one of the things that I'm most passionate about. And the election legislation that has been passed is a great start, but it's not where we need to end up. There is much more left to do, and there is a ton that we can all do together. So that's what I would love to be working on with anyone who'd like to do it. Much like in business, I've been out there doing legislation on my own, not necessarily within the GOP, and been working with candidates. So I will continue to do that inside and outside the GOP.
Thank you, Sallie. All right, so the next one kind of relates to your slate. So if you could just for a moment again, could we have the slates for each of the candidates stand up in a moment? First, starting off with Lisa. Lisa, could you identify your slate again here for us? You could stand up while she mentions your name. That'd be great.
Certainly. My first vice chair is Mr. Michael Williams. My second vice chair, which is the vice chair of grassroots and training, is Miss Alicia Adams. They are.
They are safe. Okay, keep going.
My third vice chair, which is vice chair of communications and technology, is Mr. Brian Patterson. My fourth vice chair, which is vice chair of membership, is Miss Eileen Alberstad. My treasurer is Miss Susan Carville. My assistant treasurer is Miss Jeannie White. And unfortunately, my original secretary candidate decided that this was going to be a little bit too much for her with being a new mom, which completely understandable. So my secretary candidate now is Mr. Roy Adkins.
All right. Pam, could you identify your slate for us? You can be seated. Thank you all, everybody.
Sure. The wonderful Jeff Southers is my first vice chair. And we have Fung Fung, our grassroots. Dr. Fung Fung. And we have Chase Sanger. Chase, where are you? Communications. And we have fourth vice chair for membership is Mario Russo. And our secretary, I have Christine McKennell. And unfortunately, my treasurer and my assistant treasurer are not here today. Thank you. So I do have other people who are assistants to my, as I said before, my vice chairs, but they are not present right now. I do have Andy Kingery. And Angry, he's in charge of media for me because media is a huge part of my plan for changing Cobb County around. We are going to deal with our reputation because the Democrats have done a wonderful job.
Hey, Pam, sorry.
Oh, I didn't even realize.
Sorry.
Okay, so, and also Chris Watson. Chris is my data person. My data genius. And yes, sorry, that's it. Sorry, I took your time.
So my first vice chair is the one and only Kevin Nicholas. Cameron Whiting, he is the vice chair of communication information. And let me just say, he works closely with Comcast, so he's got the N on the communications there. Catherine Floam, she's the vice chair of membership. Lily Deeb is my secretary. Sloan Kukanza is my treasurer. And the one and only Miss Cecilia Rodriguez is the assistant treasurer.
Very good. I was going to mention, I just was told that Jason Shepard has entered the building, the incumbent Cobb GOP chairman, and a candidate for Georgia GOP chair. Thank you for joining us, Jason. All right, so the question for you and your slates are, ladies, and this is should be a simple yes or no, like 10-second question. Do you and your slate members, have y'all read, are you familiar with the stated principles of the National Republican Party, the Georgia Republican Party platform, and the Georgia Republican Assembly, and do you agree with them? Lisa?
Yes.
Pam?
Absolutely.
Salleigh? Awesome. Thank you. That was easy. All right. All right, next question. Do you believe that there were problems with Georgia's election systems in the general election last year that enabled voter fraud and abuse, and what can be done? Starting off with Salleigh Grubbs on this one. We'll go Salleigh, then Pam, then Lisa on this question.
Okay, as you all know, and I've said before, you've heard me say it, I'm a dedicated woman. I chase the shredding truck, so duh, yes, there were problems. And here is the Thelma to my Louise in the back, Miss Susan Knox. So we have witnesses. Yes, I do believe that there were problems. I pretty much slept over at Jim Miller Park, it seemed like, most of the time with my friend Debbie Fisher. We saw it. There were also big problems with the military ballots, which that grieves me probably more than anything. If we can't protect the military ballot, what does that say for us as a country? We have men and women every day laying their lives on the line for us so that we can be free, and we're going to stand by and we're going to let shenanigans go on with our ballots? Not with me. That just doesn't pass muster. So yes, again, Election Protection Task Force, one of the things that we have got to have are attorneys at the ready so that if anything, even sniffs, even smells of anything going on, we have got to be ready to combat it. Once the ballot is cast, it's too late. We've got to catch it ahead of time.
Yes, ma'am. You're up. Pam Alayon. Oh, yeah, I'll repeat it for you. Do you believe that there were problems with Georgia election systems in the general election last year that enabled voter fraud and abuse, and what can be done?
Absolutely. There absolutely was fraud and abuse, and it's a shame. And the thing about it is that the Dominion machines, I know that a lot of it has to do with the no absentee ballots, which I think is ridiculous because places like New York, where I'm from, has no excuse absentee ballots. So, but what I feel that needs to be done is, first and foremost, I think, and I've talked to my team about this, is having our own election task force team here at the Cobb GOP so that we can actually be a blueprint for other counties as well. We have to take this into our own hands, and we have to keep our legislators accountable. We really have to encourage them. We have to show up down at the Capitol the way I have. I've shown up at the Capitol. I've gone there and waved signs, and I've gone there and I've protested, and I've gone there and I've supported, and I've gone there to speak with my legislators and talk to them about what they're doing. Because it's the what do they say? The squeaky wheel gets the oil, right? So when I go down there and you see all these Democrats down there waving their signs and stuff like that, we have to combat that. Again, that goes back to grassroots, okay? We have to stay on the legislators. We have to go ahead and take the initiative ourselves right here at the Cobb GOP. And I have several people who are already interested in leading that task force. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. Lisa, the question again, do you believe there were problems with the election system for voter fraud and abuse, and what can be done?
Without a doubt. There's no question that there were a multitude of weaknesses that were exposed in this last election. And it was the perfect storm of issues that caused it. Some things that were promised were never delivered on, but we had two people in particular, Chris Sheevy and Sue Marshall, who staffed all 145 of our precincts for the runoff with poll watchers. So those are the type of things that we need to do, is make sure that we have the poll watchers. We need to make sure that there's an election task force that people can call when they see irregularities. Like my poor neighbor who was told that he couldn't scan his own ballot. He was told that it had to go into a bin and it would be scanned later. Yet that is not okay, because who knows if that ballot was ever scanned properly. So those are issues. That's why we have to make sure that we're training our poll watchers early, we're training our poll watchers often, so that they can make sure they know exactly what to look for. I've talked with Ed Setzler about absentee ballots to make sure that they can be identified, so that if we know a certain ballot has been duplicated, we have proof of it, and we can make sure that those can get taken out of our count. Not perfect, but there are so many things that we can do, and it starts in this very room to do them.
Thank you, Lisa. Very good. All right, the next question is, what is your opinion of Republicans, I guess this means Republican elected officials, who govern like Democrats, voting contrary to Republican principles? Do you believe the GOP organization should play a role in providing accountability to them? If so, what might that look like? We'll start with Pam, then Salleigh, then Lisa on this one. Pam?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do believe that I don't like, it's an opinion, right? I don't like it when Republicans do that. And unfortunately, there are too many of them that do that. It seems like they just don't have the courage or the backbone to go ahead and do what they said they were going to do, or stick to our Republican principles. But the truth is that is not the job of the GOP. The GOP, the chairman of the GOP, is going to support, once they are elected, whoever is elected. You keep your personal opinions to yourself. The people have chosen who they're going to choose. The GRA has its own mission where they can endorse people and they can grade people. That's not what the GOP does. We get behind whoever the people choose. Does that mean that I'm going to shelter any of them or hide them or anything like that? Absolutely not. If you don't like who was picked, vote them out. If you have questions for them, ask your questions. I will make sure they will be available here for you all to ask the questions that you want to ask. But we also need to respect them and what they do. We need to be civil with them. We don't need to chase them down or be uncivil with them. It's a hard job to do what they're doing. If they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, send the emails, write the letters, show up at their office, do what it is that you need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. All right. Okay, restate the question again. What is your opinion of Republicans who govern like Democrats, voting contrary to Republican principles? And do you believe the GOP organization should play any role in providing accountability to them? If so, what might that look like?
So I completely, respectfully disagree with Pam. I believe that we need to hold people accountable once they are elected. But beforehand, we need to find the right candidates, we need to train the right candidates, and we need to put them in office. We cannot afford to have lukewarm candidates running this state, this country, this county. So part of my plan is to have a committee that meets often to train and develop these young people. You know, we have lots of young people in the room, and they need to learn how to run. They need to understand that we mean it when we say adhere to the Republican principles. That's what's gotten us in this mess in this country, is people not voting in alignment with the party. And so I, respectfully say that, yes, I understand during primary season when you have a couple of people that have chosen to run, that you can't be vocal in who you prefer. But once the candidate is chosen, of course you get behind them 1,000%. That doesn't mean accountability stops. That doesn't mean that we become a lame duck in holding people accountable. So again, I say that we have to have a great ground game. We have to find, train, and raise up people to run that will adhere to Republican principles.
All right. Thank you, Salleigh. And now, Lisa, just one more time. What is your opinion of Republicans who govern like Democrats, voting contrary to Republican principles? Do you believe the GOP organizations should play any role in providing accountability to them? If so, what might that look like?
Without a doubt, we need to hold them accountable for their actions. Our elected officials are our representatives. They represent us. Therefore, how we think they should govern is how they should govern. Yes, they do have their own beliefs that play a part in it, but if you're running as a Republican, you absolutely need to hold the Republican values to heart and vote that way. Now, how we play a part in it, it's even before they qualify, because once they qualify, there's nothing we can do. They've qualified, they've signed their oath that's in the Georgia statutes, and they're now a Republican candidate. However, where we play the part is in the recruiting of good candidates. When we need, if you look at 2020 in our school board, Jaha Howards and Sharice Davis are up for re-election. Two people who want to bring irreversible harm to our schools. We need candidates, good candidates, to run against them so that we can even further solidify our school board. But it doesn't stop with our school board. It goes all the way up to the governor's mansion. Just like we heard that Jeff Duncan wasn't going to bring the election integrity law to the floor. So what did I do? I wrote him. And I asked him that even though if he doesn't agree with it, to please let it come to the floor for a vote, because those people deserved a voice and their vote so that they can vote for the integrity that they wanted. Thank you.
All right, question number 7. How will you approach the task of candidate recruitment for the next election? How will you approach the task of candidate recruitment for the next election? And we'll start off with Lisa, then Salleigh, then Pam.
So candidate recruitment can be a little bit difficult, especially if we don't know that an incumbent isn't going to seek re-election until the last minute. That happened in 2018. However, we always need to be looking for new candidates that can play a part in this system of our republic, whether it be training and bringing in groups like the Leader Institute to hold candidate forums, or bring in experts in running a campaign, because the thought of running a campaign for most people, it's not the once they're elected part that scares them, it's the how do I run this thing? How much money am I going to need in order to run a campaign? Because for some people, that thought alone is overwhelming. So if we can give them the tools ahead of time to let them know this is how you start building your campaign from the ground up, that's how we start recruiting good candidates who can make a difference for our county and our state.
How do you approach the task of candidate recruitment for the next election cycle?
Well, I've got good news, folks. People are fired up. This is going to be the easiest time to find candidates. We have to vet them properly, so that's going to be a big task. So vetting is going to be a big deal, but people's hearts are on fire for our country. People want to make a difference. People want to make a change. And we've just got to open those doors, and we have to say, come on in, we got your back, we're going to support you. There are a lot of candidates who have run in the past, and they haven't felt supported by the GOP. So we have got to be there to help them raise money. We have got to be there to connect them with the fundraisers, which I can do. We've got to be there to get them connected corporately and to find those corporate sponsors who understand that this is not a cancel culture anymore. We are not going to be canceled, and we are not going to be shoved under a rug, and we are going to run the best and the brightest. And so the good news is they're here, and people want to run. And you may be listening to the John Frederick Show from time to time, but that's what this movement is about. And there is a movement across this country of grassroots. We have to harness the energy, but we have to invite everyone in who adheres to the Republican principles. And we have to get excited with them. This is not the GOP of the past. This is the grand opportunity party, and people are willing to serve.
Salleigh. Pam, the question again is, how will you approach the task of candidate recruitment for the next election cycle?
So I've actually done that already in the past. I recruited a candidate to run for the 6th District, not as Vice Chair of Membership, but just as myself. And I went out and I helped her, and I went door knocking. And I've already done that here when I did the first ever job fair. I went ahead and I connected volunteers with candidates. I organized the whole thing, I set up the whole room, and I made sure that the candidates were supported with grassroots. I went ahead and I took all the volunteer applications. So it's something I've already done. It's people at your precincts, it's people at your churches, it's people at your Rotary Club, it's people at the Kiwanis Club. You have to all be scouters. We all have to be scouters and be looking for those people. And not only that, but my team and I already spoke about holding a training here at the GOP for candidates to see if they're viable candidates so that they're vetted properly. So we get people who are seriously wanting to run, and they know what the task ahead of them is. And that's how we plan to deal with recruiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. All right, the next question is going to be just 1 minute. 1 minute answer to the next question. And we'll start with Pam, and then Lisa, and then Salleigh on this one. The question is, did you support the call for a special session last December for the state legislature to review the allegations of voter fraud and abuse in order to consider possibly intervening in determining the votes for Georgia's Electoral College? Why or why not? Pam.
Absolutely, I did. Because we need voter integrity. I mean, if we don't have confidence in our voting system, then, that's it. I mean, why do people want to go out and vote then if we don't? I did support it. I wish they would have done it. But again, that's holding the legislators accountable. And like I said, I do believe that they need to be held accountable. I said you can see them here, and you can ask the questions here. And you can email them, and you can go to their offices. But yes, they need to be held accountable, and we should have had that special session. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So Lisa, again, the question is, did you support the call for the special session last December for the state legislature to review the allegations of voter fraud and abuse in order to consider possibly intervening in determining the votes for Georgia's Electoral College? Why or why not?
Initially, I did, and then I learned the truth. The truth is that before the election took place, our legislature decided that any issues of election malfeasance should be reviewed by the courts. So anything that our legislature would have done besides holding hearings like the Senate did would have been overturned immediately in the courts. So again, at first, yes, and then I learned the truth. And the truth was our legislature, whether we agree with it or not, abdicated that role to the courts.
Okay. Salleigh, again, the question is, thank you, Lisa. Question again is, did you support the call for a special session last December for the state legislature to review the allegations of voter fraud and abuse in order to consider possibly intervening and determining the votes for Georgia's Electoral College? Why or why not?
I absolutely supported calling the legislature back into session, and not only did I support it, but me, along with a couple of friends of mine who became fast friends at Jim Miller Park, worked with Professor Eastman, Senator Ligon, and a number of other senators and legislators because they wanted to be called back into session. They wanted to answer their constituents. I understand what Lisa's saying, however, they work for us, and people seem to have forgotten that. And if the people want them called into session, they need to be called into session. I absolutely supported that.
Next one will be only 1 minute. Okay. The next question is, some members of our party believe that President Donald Trump is and should continue to be the de facto head of the Republican Party. Others disagree, thinking it is time to move on. What do you think is the proper relationship between the Republican Party and Donald Trump going forward? Salleigh, then Pam, then Lisa.
The relationship between the party and President Trump, he's the 45th president. I mean, what is the relationship with any previous president that we have? He absolutely should be revered as a former president. And as far as the leader of the Republican Party, I've not heard him say anything about being the leader of the Republican Party. So I don't quite know how to answer that. He's someone that I appreciate his leadership as president. I am an America First candidate. I'm a Cobb First candidate. So I 100% believe that America has to come first, and his policies reflected that. And I respect him for that.
All right, Pam. Some members of our party believe Donald Trump is and should continue to be de facto head of the Republican Party. Others disagree, thinking it's time to move on. What do you think is the proper relationship between the Republican Party and President Donald Trump going forward?
So you have to respect President Trump and what he did with the country in making America first. He raised the bar for Republicans, is what he did. I'm sad. I'm sad for what happened. And yeah, we do have to move on. We do have to move on. And he's a leader in spirit. And like I said, he raised the bar for us. And he set a path for us, much like Ronald Reagan. And he's to be respected and remembered, and definitely he has set a foundation for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Okay. Some members of our party believe that Donald Trump is and should continue to be the de facto head of the GOP. Others disagree, thinking it is time to move on. What do you, Lisa, think is the proper relationship between the GOP and Donald Trump going forward?
Donald Trump did amazing things for our country. There is no denying that when you look at the policies he enacted. There are some that that some of us disagree with. Because we're never going to agree with anybody 100% of the time. But he laid the foundation on bringing new people into our party. And so now we take that foundation that he laid and we move forward and we grow from it so that we can continue bringing in and having success with our minority communities, because his was unsurpassed. And that's how we continue to change the world.
Thank you. All right. This next question will be 30 seconds. It'll be Lisa, then Salleigh, then Pam. It's pretty simple. If you are elected chair, will the Cobb GOP move its Saturday morning breakfast to a later time in the morning? 8 a.m. on Saturday is too early in my opinion, says the questioner. 30 seconds.
It's too early in my opinion, too. But I know we don't want to make it too much later because people do have other things to do that day and want to have that afternoon free. But I think we can flex it by an hour or so back.
All right, Salleigh, if you're elected chair, can we move our Saturday breakfast later in the morning than 8 a.m.?
While we are a republic and not a democracy, I think it would be good to send out a survey and let people vote on that and shake it up a little bit. Let's let the people decide.
All right, Pam, should we move the breakfast to later than 8 a.m. on Saturday?
Absolutely. Because I'm the person here who's setting it up early in the morning. Not only the time, but the food. If I'm elected, my good friend that owns the Marietta Diner has agreed to go ahead and provide the food for us.
Thank you. That was an easy one. All right, next question, 11. What do you think are the driving factors? This is a 1-minute question. What do you think are the driving factors behind our party's recent losses at the county level, specifically Cobb Board of Commission, the DA, the Sheriff's Office? This one will start with Pam, then Lisa, then Salleigh. Pam, what do you believe are the factors in the recent losses at the local level, Board of Commissioners, DA, and Sheriff offices?
A lack of courage and confidence. I really honestly believe that. I believe that a fight it's in your mind. If you haven't won it here, then you haven't won it. The Democrats did a wonderful job at beating us up for 4 years straight. And it made a lot of people be ashamed to be a Republican. Don't be ashamed to be a Republican or a conservative, okay? There's no apologies needed for that. And I saw it myself happening in my own area, where people would be on Facebook or Nextdoor or whatever. It's this cancel culture, and it's this shame that the Democrats have put upon the Republicans. It's time to stand up and be proud, and for us to control our own narrative.
Time. Thank you. All right, Lisa, what do you think are the driving factors between our party's recent losses at the local level, Board of Commissioners, DA, and Sheriff races?
A big part of it, quite frankly, is our demographics are changing. If you look at people who have moved in, they've moved to Cobb for the wonderful tax rates and schools that we have, but they brought their bad voting habits with them. In if you look at our top 25 Republican precincts, we turned out 86% of the vote. If you look at the top 25 Democrat precincts, they turned out 56% of the vote. However, that 56% of the vote was 60,000 votes, more than what we had. So we have to face the facts that our demographics have changed, and that's why we need to know where to pinpoint.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, Salleigh, again, what do you think are the driving factors behind our party's recent losses at the county level, specifically Board of Commission, DA, and sheriff races?
Okay, so we've just sat here and talked about Election Protection Task Force, and we've talked about protecting the ballot, but yet that's not one of the reasons cited, and that's very upsetting to me because I stood out there and I saw it for myself. Down ballot races in the November election were directly impacted by fraud and misuse in voting. Of course, our demographics have changed, but you know what? That falls on our shoulders because we are not providing adequate outreach to people. There are people out there that identify with family values. I'm tired of the excuse that just because someone is Hispanic or just because they're black, that they're not conservative. It is a lack of outreach and is a lack of obtaining membership in the Republican Party that has also affected the ballot. People feel disenfranchised. That doesn't mean they don't have the values. They have the values. We just have to reach them.
Okay, this next one's a 1-minute question as well. 1 minute. The question is, many people believe Cobb turned blue because the policies of the county commission, which used taxpayer dollars to subsidize apartment buildings, which brought in Democrats, the Brave Stadium deal, tax allocation districts, and other forms of corporate welfare funded by tax increases, which drove away Republicans. Do you believe this was a contributing factor, and what is your opinion of these types of policies? Salleigh?
Cobb County has been blessed for a very long time in having excellent planning, and I've known those planners being here almost my entire 55 years. We have had great programs to attract business here, and I know because in moving my business, I ended up with a building in Southwest Fulton, which was a little bit depressed because Cobb property values are so good. So a lot of those policies have done a great job for Cobb County. We need to continue on that growth. As far as Republicans, in the whole Democrat situation, I refer back to my previous response. We do need to work on making Cobb first and holding people in positions of power accountable. There's no question that the high-density housing does affect the vote. Again, it's outreach and membership. We've got to get through to people.
Thank you, Salleigh. Question then to Lisa. Again, many people believe Cobb turned blue because of the policies of the county commission, which used taxpayer dollars to subsidize apartment buildings, which brought in Democrats, the Brave Stadium deal, the tax allocation districts, and other forms of corporate welfare funded by tax increases, which drove away Republicans. Do you believe this was a contributing factor, and what, in your opinion, should we do about these types of policies?
I see that happening in the city of Kennesaw. When those of us, there are several of us in this room who went to our city council and saw them not willing to give their taxpayers a small break in their taxes. We're talking $8 or $50 a year. That makes a difference to people though. But in the same meeting, they're willing to give corporations a year off on their taxes so that they bring their business here. While I appreciate the drive to bring businesses here because we need them, they help our community grow, it shouldn't be on the backs of the taxpayers.
Thank you, Lisa. Pam, many people believe Cobb turned blue because of the policies of the county commission, which used taxpayer dollars to subsidize apartments, which brought in Democrats, the Brave Stadium deal, tax allocation districts, and other forms of corporate welfare funded by tax increases, which drove away Republican residents. Do you believe this was a contributing factor, and what is your opinion of these types of policies?
I think it was a contributing factor, and I think that we have to go ahead and go to the county commissioner office meetings and speak up the way Jeff Souther did recently at one of the meetings talking about taxes. And I agree with Lisa, what she said about, bringing in businesses and things like that, and that's great, but it doesn't need to be the backs on our backs. I also don't agree with bringing in Hollywood here and giving them all the tax breaks. I mean, why do that? How are we benefiting from that? And that's bringing a lot of liberals over here and their liberal ideas that we don't need here. I mean, not if you're a Republican anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. All right, the next question. This should be a 30-second question here. What was the most important thing you learned from the last election cycle? Pam, then Salleigh, then Lisa. What was the most important thing you learned from the last election cycle? Pam.
Gosh, the most important thing from the last election cycle, just being here every day, getting people motivated, and just how important it is to get people mobilized and out there, and there was a loss of spirit. That people didn't want to get out there and vote because they didn't have confidence in voter integrity and things of that nature. But it's important to encourage the people to get out there, get together, and vote.
Thank you, Pam. Salleigh, what was the most important thing you learned from the last election cycle?
The most important thing I learned is how America is being taken away from us, and how if we don't stand up now, we have no chance of saving our country. Today is 2022. Every election counts. Every candidate counts. We have no time to waste. We have got to get busy. We have got to save Cobb. We have got to save our country.
Thank you. Lisa, what was the most important thing you learned from last election cycle?
The most important thing I learned from the last election cycle was that our messaging needs to get improved drastically. Outdoor knocking, I ran into people who didn't think that Warnock and Ossoff would actually take their guns away. Well, we see that now. But we have to improve our messages, and we have to make sure that they appeal to our Zennial and younger voters.
Thank you, Lisa. All right. Next question is a 30-second question. The Cobb County Republican Party rules grant the president of the Cobb Republican Women's Club, the president of the Cobb YRs, etc., an automatic membership of the Cobb County Republican Committee, the Cobb County Republican Party's Executive Committee. If you are elected chair, will you rewrite the rules to include the Cobb County Republican Assembly's president in the county committee and executive committee of the Cobb GOP? Lisa, Pam, and then Salleigh.
Part of the reason is that the Republican women in the YRs is because they are specific auxiliary organizations of the GOP. Unfortunately, the GRA is not, which is why right now they don't have that voting power. However, if it is the will of the county committee, it can certainly be brought for a vote.
Thank you. All right. Pam, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yeah.
The Cobb County Republican Party rules grant the president of the Cobb Republican Women's Club, the president of the YRs, etc., an automatic membership in the Cobb County Republican Committee and the Executive Committee. If you are elected chair, will you rewrite the rules to include the Cobb County Republican Assembly's president in the county committee and executive committee?
Well, I couldn't just rewrite the rules. I mean, we serve the people. So we would go ahead and bring it to the county committee and let them decide what they want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Salleigh, do you need me to repeat it?
I think I got it.
Okay.
I think that is up to the procedures and the policies according to the bylaws, and I would run things according to the bylaws and let that be a decision for people to make. That said, I think it's very important that we work and incorporate other civic organizations, not in a voting position, but in working together. So I want to make sure that we all work together for the betterment of the GOP and for our voting policies.
Okay, next one is a 1-minute question, answer. Question number 15, how should the Cobb GOP best reach out to non-GOP voters in the next election? Pam, this will first go to you. How should the Cobb GOP best reach out to non-GOP voters in the next election? It'll be Pam, then Salleigh, then Lisa.
So we all need to be advocates wherever you go. I always have my cards on me, and I talk to anyone and everyone about becoming a member. Also, things like advertisement, billboards, indoor billboards, having a podcast here in the GOP are part of our plans. Messaging, reaching out to people. That's how.
Thank you. All right, the question again, Salleigh, is how should the Cobb GOP best reach out to non-GOP voters in the next election?
I think one of the things that's missing in the component of growing the party is reaching out to parents with children. Parents need to understand what's going on in our schools with the progressive curriculum that's happening. It's happening in Marietta City, it's happening everywhere. So we need to reach out to them and educate them on conservative principles and show them how the vote directly affects what happens with their children. We need to reach out to them and show them that the school board actually does matter, and while it's time consuming and all of that kind of thing, you've got to be there, you've got to show up, and we can't wait for the next election. We have to do these things now, and we have to go ahead and prepare, and we have to go ahead, by the way, and get poll watchers now. We can't wait till 2022. We can't wait till the week before, the day before, 5 minutes before to get the poll watchers and that kind of thing. We've got to do it now, much like we have to go ahead and educate people on our principles and get them in the party.
Thank you. Lisa, how should the Cobb GOP best reach out to non-GOP voters in the next election?
One of the best ways to do that is to be seen in our communities, making a difference. Whether it's the beach cleanup every spring at Cobble Park, where we set up a little tent and we bring water and snacks for people who are helping clean up the beach. They know we care. We're there, we're helping. Okay, we may not go as far as they are with the environmental stuff, but as we care about our environment. So we're there. We're there in South Cobb helping paint some houses because they're in disrepair and a coat of paint will mean so much to them. But the biggest way to reach out to them is to be seen doing so.
All right, next question. First, we'll go to Salleigh, then Pam, then Lisa. Question 16. We all seem to agree that the Cobb GOP needs to do a better job at reaching out to minorities. But Democrats are using identity politics to divide us as a nation. And if we aren't careful, could we possibly concede to their premise and find ourselves falling into their trap? How should the GOP reach out to minorities without affirming the Marxist and racist narrative? Salleigh.
I see it happening already in the GOP, and it's quite disturbing to me. We are identifying people as this and that, ethnicity and race and color and things like that, and I've got news for you. According to our founding documents, all men are created equal. We need to treat people as such. We need to treat them as they are created equal, and we are sharing a message. And my kids think it's kind of funny because I call myself a conservative evangelist. And so I don't mix, well, sometimes I mix religion into it. Like when I was at the women's luncheon and a sweet, sweet lady came up to me and she said, I'm afraid at what is happening to our country. And I said, you know what? The Lord gives us not a spirit of fear, but of peace and understanding. And that's the way we have to go forth in a holy boldness. And we have to do that with our conservative policies too. I don't like identity politics. I don't put up with it. We're people, we're humans, and I had to laugh at what somebody posted on Facebook the other day. They said it was a chair human position, and I'm like, I like the chair chick position. Don't care what you call me, just call me, and call me to come and serve other people. I don't care what color you are, and I really don't want to hear about it. We're all created equal.
Okay, Pam, we all seem to agree that the GOP needs to do a better job at reaching out to minorities, but Democrats are using identity politics to divide us as a nation. If we aren't careful, could we possibly concede to their premise and find ourselves falling into their trap? How should the GOP reach out to minorities without affirming the Marxist and racist narrative?
Well, I have to say that I think one of the mistakes that the Republican Party makes is that they think that if you reach out to Hispanics or if you reach out to blacks specifically, that somehow is playing identity politics. It's not. When we want veterans, we reach out to veterans. When we want women, we reach out to women. So if you want Hispanics, and I'm a Hispanic, you reach out to Hispanics, okay? There's nothing wrong with recognizing a difference in culture. This is America, and we're a melting pot, and we all have a lot of different cultures, and that's what makes America beautiful. And it's okay to have a Hispanic heritage breakfast here. We have a very prominent Republican that owns the Tijuana Joe's. She gives a lot of money to candidates. She has never been invited to the GOP until I invited her. And they knew who she was, they knew who her name was, but nobody reached out to her. Why is that? Yes, we are all equally created. We are. And we're all Americans. I'm a proud American. But I love my culture too. I love my Hispanic music. I love my Hispanic food. And I love to share it with other people. That's okay. That's not identity politics. That's all I got to say.
All right, Lisa, to repeat the question again, we all seem to agree that the GOP needs to do a better job at reaching out to minorities, but Democrats are using identity politics to divide us as a nation, and if we aren't careful, we could possibly concede to their premise, find ourselves falling into their trap. How should the GOP reach out to minorities without affirming the Marxist and racist narrative?
Well, there's a difference between reaching out to minorities and identity politics. Identity politics says, you are a black woman, therefore you must believe this. Or you are an Asian man, so therefore you must believe that. That's identity politics. Reaching out to minorities and using their vernacular, using their jargon to help reach them so that they'll actually listen to our values. That's the difference between identity politics and reaching out to minorities. One of the things that my team has said that we're going to do is create a position and a committee specifically for minority outreach. If it becomes effective and we can show the improvement, then we would also like to make that position on our executive board because of how important it is. This is why I've been to events for the Republican Hispanic National Committee. This is why I've been to events for Flame, because even though I'm of European descent, every single person brings merit, every single person brings ideas, and that's what we get when we judge people by the content of their character.
Thank you. All right, this next one's a 30-second question. Many precinct officers complain that their House district chairs never gave them a list of the voters in their respective precincts. Can you pledge that precinct and House district officers will have the data and other resources they need for 2022? We'll do Lisa, then Salleigh, then Pam. Lisa?
Without a doubt. And it also goes beyond just having the data. It's also having the training. Because I know Jason is doing a training after the breakfast on April the 10th, so if you haven't signed up for it, do so. But also, it comes down to the continued training, because it's April. So what happens in January? What happens next April? There has to be continued training as well as access to the data.
Thank you, Lisa. Again, Salleigh, the question is, many precinct officers complain that their House district chairs never gave them a list of the voters in their respective precincts. Can you pledge that precinct and House district officers will have the data and other resources they need for 2022?
Absolutely, that's a necessity. And there are so many unfilled positions as well from the precinct caucus, and then we have a lot of brand new people that don't even have any information. So absolutely, information is power, but correct information is power. So we need to have it correct, and we need to have it timely distributed, and we need to continue the access, and as Lisa said, the training. We have lots of new people, and we're going to have a lot of time to take up in training them properly. Absolutely.
Thank you. Pam, many precinct officers complain that their House district chairs never gave them the list of the voters in their respective precincts. Can you pledge that precinct and House district officers will have the data and other resources they need for 2022?
Yes, I can absolutely pledge that. Being a precinct secretary myself, I understand how important that information is. We need to give them the tools to be successful, is what we need to do. And I also had a training in my home. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and encourage small meetings at people's homes to go ahead and encourage to get new members from within your neighborhoods, and you grow from the individual precincts. And,
Good, thank you. Okay, who did we leave out on that one? I just missed it. We got everybody? Okay, thanks. The next one is very, very similar, so to make sure I'm not getting these mixed up. This one's going to be 30 seconds as well. Question 18, how will you work with your precinct and House district officers to ensure they are well prepared for the next election? We'll start with Salleigh, then Lisa, then Pam.
I think to work with the officers, you need to meet frequently. We don't want boring meetings that drag on and on and on. We need to get in, get the business done, and get out. We need to have these meetings done frequently. We need to be adequately planned. And one of the things I love is I've got Lily is so exciting to be with and to work with. Also, her husband is a bonus, Chris. So we will have things timely done and meet often.
Thank you. Lisa, how will you work with precinct and House district officers to ensure they are well prepared for the next election?
That comes back to training, because that's how they learn. They need that constant reinforcement. Alicia Adams, who is my grassroots and training vice chair, did this for a living. So she knows how to teach people, how to engage voters, and make that difference. That's where we can also draw on the fact that my doctorate's in adult learning theory. We teach adults.
How will you work with the precinct and House district officers to ensure they are well prepared for the next election?
Leading by example. Dr. Feng Feng, emergency room doctor, would be working all night and then go out and knock on doors, okay? That's a man right there that's going to lead by example. Going ahead and doing mock walking. Feng, what did we talk about? It's training, and it's leading by example. And it's the small groups, once again. It's important to have those ongoing small groups and encouraging our groups and being accessible, too. That's a huge thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. This next one, you get 1 minute. Question 19, is there anything the Cobb GOP can do, you believe, to build a legal team that can help us challenge cases of possible voter and election fraud or abuse in the future? It'll be Salleigh, then Lisa, then Pam.
Absolutely, 100%. The good thing is that as a paralegal for many years, I've developed relationships with many attorneys in town, and some of the best election attorneys that I know of have been willing to step up and work with us, and I want to have a council of counsel, so to speak, so that we have many attorneys, like I said earlier, who are at the ready to defend the ballot and to also be sure that processes are in place with our elections system, with Janine Evler or whoever comes next, to be sure that we have good processes that are able to be audited and also that are available to the public. We saw that change very much at Jim Miller Park. First you could have access, then you couldn't have access, then you were segregated away from people, and it was just a hot mess. So we need to be able to call somebody to come out. There was one attorney in particular who did a great job at coming out and helping. We need more. We have tons more work to do.
Question again is there anything the Cobb GOP can do, you believe, to build a legal team that can help us challenge cases of possible voter and election fraud or abuse?
Definitely. It goes back to planning ahead of time and being ready, whether it be having that team of lawyers ready to go file or having sample briefs that can be literally insert our county name here and go file them ourselves so that we have everything at the ready and can be acted on instantaneously. Because our poll watchers not being allowed to have meaningful access at the polls, sitting over in a chair in the corner isn't meaningful access. And that comes back from the County Board of Elections. And that has to be addressed so that we have everything written and trained on properly.
Thank you. Pam, is there anything the Cobb GOP can do, you believe, to build a legal team that can help us challenge cases of possible voter and election fraud or abuse?
Absolutely. I've already identified one of those lawyers, and to be part of our election task force team here at the GOP, and also to work alongside my two poll managers, Christine and Jean, just because they have an inside look at everything that needs to be done properly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next question is a 30-second answer. We'll start with Lisa. The question is, believe it or not, this was actually a question submitted. How will you handle questions from the audience for candidates and elected officials at Cobb GOP events? Lisa.
Honesty, forthrightness, and respect. Everyone has the question. Everyone has questions. Everyone wants to be heard. However, we need to make sure we're not yelling at any of our guests or our elected officials, which unfortunately, we've seen before. So honesty, forthrightness, and respect is the only way to go.
Thank you. Pam, how will you handle questions from the audience for candidates and elected officials at Cobb GOP events?
With tact. You have to be civil, right? That goes back to what I was saying before with your other question, where, I said, if you have a question, if you don't like what a legislator is doing, then you want to approach them civilly. You ask your questions, but you want to do it with tact.
Thank you. Salleigh, how will you handle questions from the audience for candidates and elected officials at Cobb GOP events?
I think that requires more than a 30-second answer, because what it comes down to is the culture and us respecting each other within the GOP. And I think that we need to do some work on how we treat each other. We need to have a culture of positivity. I've done this in businesses where I've had to do turnarounds and change people's attitudes and how they treat each other. And we need some basic ground rules. And everything you ever needed to know you learned in kindergarten, we need to pay attention to those rules and be kind to one another.
By the way, thank you, ladies. Yeah, these ladies have been doing a great job. I know it's a lot to have this many questions to be under this headline and everything else this long. Thank you so much for your energy and for your focus throughout all this. We're going to spice it up a little bit here. We're now in question 21 of 25, remember. Now, this question here, you have the option to answer it yourself, or if you prefer, you can delegate a member of your slate to answer it for y'all's slate. The question is, what are some of your ideas for improving the structure of the Cobb GOP? Lisa, then Pam, then Salleigh. What are some of your ideas for improving the structure of the Cobb GOP?
I can take it. So the structure of the GOP, one of the things that I would like to do, especially at redistricting, is actually change the way that our executive committee is put together. Because currently we have 15 House districts, all having an equal vote, who have vastly different amounts of responsibility. We have 2 House districts that have 1 precinct each. Yet their vote is the same as House districts with 17 precincts each. So I would like to make it more equitable. And meaning, so that would turn in, instead of House districts, we would organize by sub-district. And we would divide our 145 precincts up. Okay, it wouldn't exactly be equitable because somebody would have to have 13, but each chair would have 12 precincts. Therefore, they would be able to work closely with them. We would avoid the whole split precinct mess at precinct caucus and go from there so that everybody can work together and it would be a more closely knit group, rather than you look at some of our House districts like 37, which goes all the way up from Kennesaw all the way down in a crescent moon shape, and literally you can draw a line for the voting from how North 37 votes compared to South 37. So let's group them similarly so that we can be the most effective.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, Pam, do you want to answer this one yourself or have one of your slate people do that? Okay, which one? We'll need that person to come forward to the mic.
Okay, Fung.
Okay, Fung's going to come up to answer this one.
Fung is our grassroots chair.
The question is, what are some of your ideas for improving the structure of the Cobb GOP?
Well, I tell you what, when Pam sets a team together, she puts people together, she gives everyone an assistant so things don't fail. She gives us backup, she gives us resources. My greatest joy in life is building things in organizations. You tell me to build, I did something in the Georgia Chess Association. We build them up from a club structure to something large, to a big state chapter. We had kids playing 1,000 kid tournaments in the state. We had wonderful things happen. So I'm happy to try to build things within the structure. It's a challenge to build infrastructure. You have to find people. You have to find qualified people. You have to have backups in case these people fail. But it's an art and a science to build infrastructure here. But we do it with communication. We know that we have to reunite the party once this party gets back together, once we get all these officers elected. We want to work together as a team. And so it's real important to get this infrastructure built. But that's just part of it. We know that factionalism can't survive. No one will join an organization that's fighting with itself. So we can't fight with each other there. So that's part of the principles here. I just touched on it, but I don't have enough time to elaborate more. But that's an outline.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Fung.
All right, Salleigh, would you like to answer that yourself or to a slate?
I think everyone needs to hear from my first vice, Kevin, so I'm going to let him take this one.
Well, the first change of structure should probably be putting the amount.
You have to almost be eating it.
Structure probably should be putting the GRA president on the
It's not me.
We'll take that in consideration. Actually, there's a couple things. really great question. You'll probably speak about 10 minutes on it, but I see I've got about a minute and a half, so I'll be brief. The first thing is about House District Chairs. Right, there is some inconsistency. I've been a House District Chair for 43 for a long, long time. I do notice that when I was a House District Chair, and for that matter working with the Executive Committee, there's a lot of inconsistencies in how we run House districts. There needs to be a good job description where we can all be measured, and that really goes to how we not only conduct our grassroots activities, but how we get good candidates, good Republicans elected, and that's the second thing. You know, for such a long time, being a candidate for 2 times myself, most recently in the Cobb Commission for District 2, you're on your own if you're a candidate, and that's not good. I don't care if you're in a primary or if you're in a general election. We need some real strong party structure to support good candidates coming through the pipeline and supporting them to get elected. So it's all about how we do it, and how we do it is through grassroots. Me and I know lots of people in this room, I know a lot of people here, good friends, we've worked hard on campaigns. Grassroots training should be a cornerstone of what we do in order to get good candidates elected, and that's the purpose of what we're doing. We need to run like a business and make that happen.
There you go. All right. Very good. All right, ladies, staying on the subject of slates, before we hear a little bit more from some of y'all's slates, please tell us, why did you pick each of the people in your slate? We'll go Salleigh, then Pam, then Lisa.
You want me to talk about each one?
Well, however you'd like to answer the question. Why did you pick each of the people in your slate?
It was through being on my knees a lot and praying for what's best for Cobb County. That's the answer right there. Why I picked the people that I did, I feel like they were put in my life for a reason as friends and as people who are highly trained, educated, just, they're awesome people. Cecilia and I became friends on Facebook, believe it or not. You find friends, and then goodness knows she turns out to be so educated and to be a human resources professional and that kind of thing with a financial background. Catherine Floam, we spent lots of grueling hours at Jim Miller Park. But that wasn't the only reason. These people are highly educated, highly trained. Cam, I tell you what, I talked to him about communications, and before I can say go, it's already done. I mean, he just blows my mind. That's what's great about these young people. I'm pretty competent, okay? I know what I'm doing, but these guys are just awesome. And Kevin has got tremendous experience already being on a governmental board. I just don't know how we could do any better with the leaders. Everyone individually is a leader, and I have a deep bench so that we can go on into the future. So that's why I did it.
All right, Pam, why did you pick each of the people in your slate?
Because they're the bomb. Because these people have been in the trenches with me. I've known them for a while. Jeff Salleigh. I mean, if you don't know who Jeff Salleigh is, then you haven't been around the party long enough, okay? This man has done everything. And he also has business experience as an executive and all that wonderful stuff too. But what I like about him is that he has heart and he works and he rolls up his sleeves. Dr. Fung, I chose him because he has strategy, because he is was the president of the chess club of Georgia. So a man like that's got strategy. Not only does he have strategy, but he has energy. He gets out there and he knocks on the door. No one on my slate is a title holder. All of them, even though they have, even Dr. Fung, who's a doctor, doesn't matter. He's humble and he's willing to jump in there and do the work. Mario's a salesman. This man, I met him because he walked in and he was a volunteer. Christine was on my team as well. We are a cohesive team. We've been together for a while. So when you guys vote us in, we're going to hit the road running, okay? Because we've already been working with each other, and I know all of their strengths. Chase is my communication person. Chase has done a wonderful job at that, and he's also a young man who's good with social media, and we need to have that. And Dave Tolka, who's not here, he's also a treasurer of his church, but I can't get into that anymore. I'm out of time.
Thank you. Lisa, why did you pick each of the people in your slate?
I picked the people on my slate based on who they individually are, what they can bring, whether it be Alicia's experience training, whether it be Susan's experience with bookkeeping. They all bring a unique and necessary skill to the slate. Their experience, whether it be in party or in the professional world, their passion, their love of our country, it just works, and we work well together. Whether it be Brian making funny memes for communications, just to try something new, again, it just works. We're a cohesive group, and we will excel together because we all have a shared vision.
Thank you. Okay. All right, for this next question, we're going to ask each of the first vice chair candidates to come forward to the front. So that would be, I think, Jeff Souther, Michael Williams, and Mr. Nichols. So this question is going to be directed to you three gentlemen. The question is, what is the role of the first vice chair in the Cobb GOP, and why do you believe in your team slate? We'll go Jeff, then Michael, then Mr. Nichols.
Thank you, Nathaniel, for that question. So the role of the first vice chair is outlined in the rules. And number one, that person has to stand in should something happen with the chair. Maybe one of the chairs wins the lottery and never comes back. They have to stand in for them until the county committee makes a permanent decision. But related to that, which is not said in the rules, is that person needs to be able to represent the party in meetings, other events. Maybe the chair is at one event, but we need to be represented at another. That person needs to be able to stand in. Also, and one of the biggest, most critical pieces of this position is that it is the one who chairs the vetting, the recruiting, the vetting, and the placement of poll watchers, and also helps make sure there's enough Republican poll workers with the Board of Elections to ensure that we have representation on both sides of the table. And that's something that I am passionate about, and I want to make sure it gets done, because you've got to have people to have election integrity. And then another piece of the role, and outlined in the rules, is that it is to coordinate between the other parties, the district parties, the 6th, the 11th, and the 13th, as well as the state, to ensure that any communications, any meetings, anything that's taking place, that is coordinated between the Cobb GOP and those districts. And then why do I believe in the team slate? Because we need a party that is people focused, and the people on this slate are 100% committed to growing this party. And I'm committed, they're committed, and together we will succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Williams, next. Question again is, what is the role of the first vice chair?
Yeah, I got the question. I'm good.
Good. Okay.
Jeff has covered the black and white of the rules of what goes along with the position. I think that outside of the letter of the rules, the vice chair has to be aware of what's going on within the organization. I think if there's a project or a team or a committee that's got something in the works, the vice chair needs to kind of have fingers in all of the pots to know what's happening across the broad scope of the organization. You know, the chair really has to be that public-facing person that sometimes is in front of the camera, sometimes is crafting that message that goes out to the public. The vice chair needs to be able to look inward to understand the workings inside of the organization. I was a founding board member and a former vice chair of Georgia Tea Party. I was the vice chair of the Simple Tax Inc. I was the vice chair of the Cobb Young Republicans Club before I was the chair for 2.5 years, and so I'm well familiar with the role of number two, the role of the person that supports number one, whether it's standing in for them when they have to be elsewhere, or whether it's just putting a bottle of water in their hand when they're having trouble speaking. You kind of have to have that humility to the role as well. So that's my answer. Why do I believe in our slate? Gosh, we're having so much fun together. We work so well together. We're trading memes back and forth. We're really a team full of the people that have been in the background, that have been making things happen. Myself, Lisa, and Roy were the 3 last people out of the building at the precinct caucus. I mean, we're a whole team of people that understand the inner workings. We're the kind of people that other chairs might rely on to make the day-to-day happen. And so I think that it's time that we take the people who have the plans, who have been doing the work, and put them in charge. So I believe in our team for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Nichols.
And what these guys said was right on. I will add one just quick thing. Also, there is a responsibility for putting on conventions, including the precinct meetings, the mass precinct. So if there were some first-timers at the mass precinct, you can see it's controlled chaos. But so the first vice chair has a big responsibility for making sure all these things run smoothly. You need to have someone with the good experience in order to do that. But I will also add one thing that's probably not really articulated in the rules, but we really need to focus on, is what I alluded to just prior, is the role of the House district chairs and the uniformity and measurement of performance. Specifically, our biggest problem with our grassroots efforts right now is we are understaffed. We don't have all the House district chairs filled. We certainly don't have all the precinct chairs filled. And you can't run a ship, you can't sail a ship without having sailors on board in order to make it work. And so that's what the first thing we need to do, and the first vice chair needs to be fully responsible for that. And so that would be one of my priorities. In addition to everything else, the poll watching is certainly a big, big deal, and making sure we have a whole pipeline of poll watchers, so this way we don't just be reactive during the election process. We're already lined up to make sure we have poll integrity. And then further on that is, well, I'm going to answer the question with the little bit of time I have left about why I believe this slate is a good team. When Sal and I had spoke, I believe that we stand for the right things. Business, getting good people elected, getting a good pipeline of elected people and candidates and getting them elected, and also voter integrity and making sure the polls are solid. But what I really love most is the structure of this team, the youngest of this team, along with some old people, and the experience that we meshed together and hitting the ground running. Like Pam said, I thought was good. We're going to hit the ground running because of the experience and the diversity that we have.
Thank you. All right, wait a minute, guys. We got another question for you, first vice chairs. The first vice chairs, we have another question for you. Wait, come on down. This is actually a question for the first vice chairs. It's going to be hopefully a short one, 30 seconds each. If for some reason you say no, then we give you up to a minute to answer. It's going to be the first vice chairs and then to the chair candidates afterwards. The question is, in the past, we have had issues with Republican office holders who have made public donations to Democrats while serving as a Republican officer. If elected, and the rules of the GOP were broken in this way, and there was evidence brought to your attention, would you support an effort to censure or otherwise hold that Republican officer accountable? We'll go first to Mr. Williams.
Yeah, if it can be shown that the rules were broken, then that's certainly the action that should be taken. If the rules say that the committee may take a certain action, then that's a different situation. The words may and shall have two very different meanings. This specific question is related to a specific situation, and this question does not really address the complexities of that particular question. I think I know who it came from, and it's motivated by a personal issue that person still struggles with today.
That's good. No, that's okay. Thank you. Mr. Nichols? All right.
Yeah, well,
So it's okay. Nichols?
All right, so very quickly, yes, I believe that if you're Republican, you better support the things we believe in, you better support the candidates we have and elected officials. That doesn't mean they're not being held accountable, but this is one way to hold them accountable, right, is to make sure that they're following what we want them to do. But as far as donating to the other side, there's two competing issues. We need to make sure we don't sacrifice our liberties as individuals. We want to make sure that we can still honor that, but we still need to consider a rule that doesn't support the other party. I fully agree with that.
Thank you. Yeah.
100%, we need to hold people accountable. If you break the rules, you break the rules. And as I served on the board of the Cobb Republican Assembly, that is a core value that we have. It's what we fought for, it's what we stand for, and it's what I will bring to this role as first vice chair to ensure that we are holding people accountable to do the right thing.
Thank you. We'll go up the table, Salleigh, Pam, and Lisa. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I believe that you have
Thank you. I was just thinking, they'll go back to their chairs.
I believe that you have to live by the rules. And I believe that you have to be the change that you want to see in your elected leaders as well. It does us no good to have rules and break them, but yet not, hold others accountable as well. So I absolutely believe in abiding by the rules, knowing the rules, and also expecting the same for our leaders. We can't hold them to one standard and us to another.
In the past, we've had issues with Republican office holders who have made public donations to Democrats while serving as a Republican officer. If elected and the rules of the GOP were broken in this way, and there was evidence brought to your attention, would you support an effort to censure or otherwise hold that Republican officer accountable? Pam, and then Lisa. There you
It's
go.
okay. Absolutely. We have to hold them accountable. I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, that's really a simple thing. That's it. Hold them accountable. They broke a rule. That's what you have to do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lisa.
Rules are rules, but we also have to remember that everyone is presumed innocent. Therefore, enough evidence has to be brought forth in order for the censure, whether it's our friends, whether it's someone we don't get along with, or what we consider a different part of the party. So any rule, whether it be our data breaches, whether it be a donation, those type of rules must be followed.
Thank you. All right. We have one more question, but we're going to keep this 30 seconds because you are going to also get a closing statement. The question is, number 25, this is just to the candidates here at the table. If you were allowed to do one thing to prepare our party for the next election cycle, what would it be and why? 30 seconds. If you were allowed to do one thing to prepare our party for the next election cycle, what would it be? We'll start with Pam, then Lisa, then Salleigh.
Lots of prayer. Building the morale, unifying the party, getting them ready for what's to come ahead, because it's not going to be easy. It's going to take work. That's it.
Thank you.
One of the things that we don't have in the gubernatorial election year is a convention. And I'd like to have not a convention, because those are long and boring, but have a rally that invigorates our base to get us ready to go out into our community and start door knocking, start making phone calls so that we're ready to take on the election.
To get ready for the next election, we need to start now. We need to put into place our Election Protection Task Force, which is going to also incorporate planning for poll watchers. In my view, it doesn't need to solely fall on the first vice to take care of all of that, We need to have a team of people who can coordinate poll watchers and poll workers. We need people to be hired by the Cobb County Board of Elections. We need to be sure that the temp agencies aren't in control. We need to be in control.
Okay. All right, so now we come to our closing statements. Thank you all for being so persevering as you've sat there and listened and taken all this in. We sure appreciate your patience and your attention. We appreciate each of the candidates here. They're going to give a closing statement, then we'll have you do yours, Charlie. So since we started with Lisa, then Pam, then Salleigh in the opening statements, we're going to go in reverse order. Let Salleigh, then Pam, then Lisa make your closing statements. You have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to thank all of y'all for being here tonight, and to everyone who's online watching, thank you for taking your evening with us and looking out for the future of Cobb County, for our state, and for our country. I get a little bit upset at this. My son, who's here tonight, I'm going to out him a little bit, and he came to me and said, "Mom, you know, I don't think we're going to have kids because of the state of our country." There is no better motivator than to think you're not going to have a grandchild. Okay? So let me tell you what the deal is with work too. When you run a business, every time I see a salesman come in the door, I say, "What are you doing here? You're not out there selling." This is just a shell of a building. The activity happens outside those doors. We need to plan, we need to be prepared, but we need to hit the ground, guys. We don't have time to waste. This is make it or break it. This is 2022. We're going to have a gubernatorial election, and it's going to be tough. And we are going to have to face the media, and we're going to have to face a lot with Governor Kemp running. We're going to have a primary. Who knows how many people are going to be running? So we need to unite. We need to be one team going forward to take this county back, and I need y'all to join with me to do it.
Pam, closing statement.
Again, thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it. I just wanted to read something really quick from The Guardian, August 6, 2015. It says, "Perhaps the ultimate nightmare for the Democrats was personified by a Trump fan named Pamela Alayon, a Puerto Rican American mother from Atlanta." This is a battle, folks. This is a crucial time. This is no time to be messing around. Like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm just speaking from the heart. I have a very skilled team that I have put together. People who have already been here working. They understand what it takes. They understand how to be involved with the volunteers, get them motivated, get them out there. Grassroots, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of you in here. It's going to take all of us to do this. It's going to take energy and courage. It took a New Yorker with energy and courage to turn this country around. It very well may take a New Yorker with energy and courage to change Cobb County around. Thank you very much.
I hope you guys forgive me for not standing up with a broken foot. I'm gonna stay seated. This is our home. This is where we live. This is where we choose to raise our families. And the Republican Party is the tribe and the village we have chosen to raise our families with. And we have to remember that it's for the future is why we fight. whether it be our children, hopefully Sally's grandchildren someday. That's why we fight. And we're fighting for a better community. We're fighting for a better state. We're fighting for a better nation. We're fighting so that our kids can grow up in a country that we still recognize, that Ray can be anything she wants to be, rather than having the socialist education go, nope, you get to pick what you're going to be in 4th grade and you're stuck with it the rest of your life. We need to become the shining city on the hill once again. And we do that by binding together and presenting a united front that cannot be broken no matter what games the other side plays. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our candidates, would you please give them a standing ovation? We are so grateful for you ladies coming out and for speaking to us for about 2 hours. Y'all have been just amazing. Y'all can be seated. Before we close, I'm going to let our third vice president, Mr. Charlie Williams, say something to you real quick before we go.
You know, I'm probably the oldest one here, thank God, that I made it. Come May 23rd, I'm going to be 89 years old. Can you believe it? Let me say this. These young ladies right here, they're very attractive. Holy mackerel, talking about them. Anyway, they said a lot of good things. And I want to say that each one of them has got a good program. But I also want to say to you, what are we thinking about? We got to think about Cobb County. What's best for Cobb County? What we think is going to be best for Cobb County. Not what our best friend or our friend is, that we're going to vote for that friend. I will not vote for a friend just because they are friends. I wouldn't vote for my brother-in-law or my brother if I didn't think he was capable of holding the job. So my point that I'm trying to make, let's, before we take a vote, let's think about it. Who is going to lead this county? Who has been a good county in the past, but unfortunately we've lost ground. But I don't care which one wins. We got to help them. And I don't mean just one of us. I'm talking about every damn one of you. Okay? I mean, it makes no difference who wins. We've got to help them. We can't stand around sitting on our hands like we do in the past. I come here to the breakfasts on Saturday morning, and the men come up and say, hey guys, what was your golf game? What was your fish? Did you catch any fish last week? And the gals come up, I guess I crocheted or something, and then we walk out the door and not a damn thing's done. Now, let's change that, okay? Let's change it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Once again, if you are a Cobb RA member, you should have already received an email this evening at 9 o'clock that is your ballot. So if you would like to vote in the endorsement convention, and you are a Cobb RA member, and you've paid your registration for the electronic convention, you can vote, and that will be counted. We will be tallying up endorsement votes by the end of Friday. Now, you may have a note from Greg Howard if you're a recent applicant. For the GRA in Cobb, he may have sent you a questionnaire that you need to fulfill and send back to him so he can finally approve your RA membership. If you do that before Friday, we will let you vote. We will let your vote be counted if you register. So I just want to remind you of that. We thank you all once again for coming. Hope you have a great drive back home. We look forward to seeing you on April the 17th for the Cobb GOP convention. And thank you all ladies once again for participating. What's that? Oh, don't forget to register for the Cobb GOP convention. Thank you very much. Take care. You're dismissed.